let's watch Seth Dillon destroy Dave Smith when it comes to the topic of Tucker Carlson's recent interview with Nick Fuentes. Let's take a listen.
People want to have them. Should there be any limits to people in terms of giving them a platform?
Well, I mean, I think that's a decision for anybody to make of who they want to talk to. I mean, I believe in freedom of association. You know, by the way, if you look at the numbers, I'm not so sure it wasn't Nick Fuentes platforming Tucker. And I mean this with, like, I love Tucker. He's a good friend of mine. But look, the one that makes it particularly ridiculous with this Nick Fuentes thing, and I agree with you too. By the way, you know, I've talked to all types of people. I've had conversations with communists on my show and socialists, and weirdly, like, that never seems to be an issue, which is very strange in a way, because it's like, I mean, you could make an argument communism is the worst ideology ever. It's responsible for like 100 million deaths in the 20th century. It's still responsible for the oppression of people in Cuba and in North Korea, maybe quasi in Venezuela. But with Nick Fuentes, particularly in this moment, what's so funny to me about it is it's like, guys, we ran the experiment of trying to censor Nick Fuentes. When I say we, I don't mean me. I never believed in that, and I had him on my podcast, you know, back in the day too. But this guy is huge. It's just undeniable. He is huge. So at this point, you're just saying, would you like to not have a conversation about this? Look, I think there are lots of bad ideas all over the place. I always err on the side of sitting down and having a conversation is better than putting people in silence, trying to squash people. And look, Nick Fuentes was one of the most censored people in the country, and he's bigger than ever right now. So clearly that didn't work, and now we're having conversations.
Yeah.
And Seth, you know, we simultaneously, you mentioned the Charlie Kirk thing, Seth. I wanted to ask you specifically about what Candace Owens has been doing around Charlie Kirk's murder. Many people think she is deliberately fueling pretty insane conspiracy theories linking Israel to the murder and so on. You've been dragged into some of this stuff, I know. What is your response to what Candace has been doing? Because she has a massive platform. She's getting these views amplified to a lot of people.
I think it's despicable in the same way that you think what Alex Jones was doing was despicable, for the same reason. You have people who are close friends and family members and associates, colleagues of Charlie Kirk, who loved him very dearly and are in the middle of mourning and grieving the loss of their friend, somebody that they love, and the spotlight of suspicion is being shined on them, and they're being accused of playing some kind of role in a cover-up. And you need to have, you know, in order to leverage accusations like that, or even just insinuations, if you're not alleging it and you're just kind of like, you know, here's the dots, you guys go connect them. You have to have some evidence. You have to have some reason for thinking that's the case, not just that you feel it. You know, we don't know, but we know that we know, is something that she said. You know, it's just, you can't go by your gut feelings. You can't go to what, you know, your dreams and what your dreams told you, and then go down this dark path of trying to vilify and smear people who had nothing but love for Charlie, and would have, some of them I know very personally. You know, Frank Turek was there standing by Charlie's side. He's been caught up in some of this stuff, and he's been in the crosshairs of Candace just recently. And, you know, he would have put himself between that bullet and Charlie if he could have. He loved Charlie like a son. And so, you know, the grief is compounded by all of this. But just a step back real quick to the thing about, you know, Fuentes on Tucker's show. I agree with Dave. Maybe you're surprised that we agree on so much, but I agree with Dave about Tucker having every right to talk to whoever he wants to. I also agree that when you censor people and you try to suppress their voices, in many cases, you only make them louder. I mean, look what happened with the Babylon Bee. I think we're more popular today than ever. We have a bigger following than ever because there were all these efforts to censor and suppress our voice. It backfired pretty spectacularly. Drag the bad ideas out into the sunlight, engage with them, confront them. And this is my criticism of the interview with Nick Fuentes, is that there wasn't confrontation. Nick has said terrible things. Nick has said things like, you know, he wants to, when we get into power, all these atheists and these heretics and these perfidious Jews, they deserve the death penalty. They need to be executed. You know, he's glorified Hitler and said that he's really cool, really effing cool, actually. You know, he's in the conversation with Tucker, he talked about his admiration for Stalin, who's responsible for tens of millions of deaths. And so, you know, to gloss over all of that, to not challenge it and confront it. Tucker is so good. He was so good when he would have Democrats on, leftists, liberals that he disagreed with. He would mock them. He'd make them look foolish. He would ridicule and refute their ideas. And they stopped coming back because they were so embarrassed because he made them look so foolish. I'd like to see Tucker do that with bad ideas on the right. Why isn't he doing that? The only reasonable conclusion that you can draw for not challenging Nick in more substantive ways is that he doesn't disagree with him.
Right. Right. I mean, it's a very, I mean, I've had a few big toe-to-toes with Tucker, and he is, he's normally comes at you like a firecracker. And what was noticeable about the Feuntes one was he had a very different tone with him. And, like you say, Seth, you can take that as tacit agreement with what Feuntes is saying, if you don't vigorously take it on and challenge it in the moment.
Yeah, well, Nick,
Dave,
what Nick is trying to do is become more mainstream. Nick is trying to become more mainstream.
Right.
He's moderating a little bit. He's trying to distinguish himself from people who are further right than he is. And Tucker's helping him with that. Why? You want to ask that question. If we're asking questions, just asking questions, I want to know why Tucker is trying to mainstream Nick Fuentes instead of saying, look, you have radical, terrible ideas that have no part in the conservative movement. You're collectivist in your ideology. You're racist. You're bigoted in terrible ways. You've said horrible, disgusting things. I don't want you in my movement. Why isn't that Tucker's posture towards someone like Nick Fuentes?
Okay, so that's a great clip. So two things are going on here, right? Nobody who's serious about this topic of canceling people and all that stuff is saying that Tucker shouldn't or doesn't have a right to interview someone like Nick Fuentes. There are two things someone who's having these interviews needs to think about, right? It's who you should speak with, and then what is the purpose of that discussion, right? So someone's popularity is a good enough reason to speak with them. They clearly have struck a nerve with a certain group of people, and that, if you're in the politics world, that's a good enough reason to speak with them. But then you have to ask the second question, which is, what's the purpose? Is your purpose to highlight their ideas? Is your purpose to amplify what they're saying? Or is the purpose to debate and refute them? And clearly Tucker Carlson had the capacity to debate Nick Fuentes and to push back on a lot of the garbage that he said in the past and during that interview, but he didn't, which leads people to believe correctly that Tucker Carlson outed himself as someone that is deeply compromised or hateful. So I think that's the main point that Seth Dillon made, and it's a fantastic point I think most reasonable people can agree with. That's it for now. My name is Matan Hazanov. I'm a venture capitalist investing in early stage software businesses. If you're building something great and want to pitch us, my information is down below. I also have a YouTube channel and a podcast called the Profit or Pivot Podcast. Where I interview innovators, entrepreneurs, and all that fun stuff. My information about that is also down below. Thank you for watching.